have a pretty good idea of how my ball is going to move inside of my animation, but the last thing that we need to prototype and explore is the timing of it, the movement, the speed in which the ball is going to animate from the background to the foreground. The easiest way to do this is to create an exposure sheet or a timing chart. A quick way for us to experiment with timing, experiment with speed and duration without having to go in and do the laborious task of animating each individual frame. Shoot, at this stage, I don't even know how many animation frames I'm gonna need. So let's start creating an exposure chart. If you look at the book and a lot of other animation references out there, you're gonna see these classic exposure charts, which is really nothing more than kind of a spreadsheet, if you will, that defines when certain actions are going to happen. Let's do it real fast. I'm gonna create a simple animation layer here, and I'm gonna call this one we'll call it exposure. And it's called the exposure because in the good old school animation days when everything was filmed with practical film, we had to make an exposure on a negative film, which is pretty cool. I'm just gonna name this animation layer exposure chart and use some simple drawing tools like lines to help us establish the time that certain things are going to happen. And I'm gonna do it on the outside of my animation frame. You can do it over there, that's totally fine. Yeah, this is a cool work area. We don't necessarily have to do it inside the drawing itself. Of course, anything that's outside the boundaries of our frame is not going to be rendered, so it's a great environment for us just to very quickly prototype our sense of speed. Okay, so I know that we have to have a couple ideas in here in play. Well, this is going to be the start of our scene. Okay, up here at the top, this is the start, and this is the end. Now, previously, we were doing this horizontally. I'm doing the exact same thing, just vertically. Exact same thing. This is the start, this is the end. And now I need to figure out how long it's going to take to do these jumps. How long in between each movement arc, how long it's going to take for the animation to go through each one of these movement arcs. So I know that the start is going to be over here. So we have the first jump, the second jump, the third jump, the fourth jump, and maybe we have a fifth jump where it bounces off the screen itself. So we're gonna have 5 jumps in total. So how long is each jump going to take? Well, the distance I know that back here it's gonna be a little bit slower. Bong, bong. It's gonna get faster as it gets closer to the frame itself. So let's start figuring that out. In my mind right now, as I'm starting to draw this, I'm visualizing what this animation is going to be. And visualizing is a fancy word for I'm just pretending. I'm just imagining what this animation is going to be, and then I'm going to time it out using my smartphone here in a second. All right, so I know that I'm going to have at least 5 jumps. So this is the first one, and I'm just going to append this a little bit. Say first, and this is the 5th jump down over here. So I need to have a second jump, a third jump, and then last but not least, a 4th jump. Now notice that I'm not really paying attention, nor am I really considering in my mind how the distance between these 2 frames. I'm just trying to create a system where I can figure this out. That line represents the second. This is the 3rd jump, and then of course, last but not least, this is the 4th jump here. Okay, so how long between each one of these frames? I don't know. Let's find out. And this is the cool thing about the craft that we work in, is that we get to go in and start timing things out, and it's pretty cool. All right, so believe it or not, I'm actually gonna pull out my cell phone and I'm gonna time this out, okay? Almost all cell phones these days have some sort of stopwatch function inside of the app itself. And you can also go online. There are free clocks and stopwatch apps anywhere online. So if you don't have a cell phone, you can still do this, or you can just count it out. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and start figuring out the timing of this in your mind. Now I'm gonna use on my cell phone here the lap functionality in the stopwatch itself. And this lap functionality will allow me to kind of hit a button every time I want an animation to happen. Now I'm gonna put it up here. So I'm gonna hit the start button. So first jump, second jump, third jump, and 4th jump. Woo, okay. So I know that there's about, the first jump was about a second and a half in. The second jump was about a second after that. and then it gets shorter and shorter. So if we translate that into frames, 1 second of film frames is 24 seconds. So if I want to have my first jump in here, so this, okay, is equal to 1 second, okay? 1 second is actually 24 frames. Okay, so we got 24 frames here. We'll make this one a little bit shorter. So this gives me an idea of kind of like the interval between each one of these jumps. So this one, so in here, this is going to be, let's make it 20 frames. Okay, between this one's getting faster because it's getting closer to us. Let's make this 14 frames. And this one is going to be, I don't know, let's make it 8 frames. So if we add all this up, 24 plus 20, that's 44, plus 14, this is 58, plus another 8, this is now 64 frames? Boom, there we go. Now we know exactly how many animation frames that we need to create this movement according to the timing that I established before. I now take this information and start plotting that into my timeline itself. So this is where it gets real fun real fast, because now we have a good idea. I think I said 64 frames total for the animation. Okay, let's zoom in on our timeline over here. Bear with me just for 1 second. I know that, there we go. Now we can start seeing it. Okay. All right, so I'm down here inside of my timeline, and I've changed the sequence end to 64. So that's the final frame that I'm going to have inside of my animation itself. So this is a good place to begin. All right, so we need a keyframe on frame 1, okay? And then 24 frames later, we need to be at our second jump. Okay, so we'll move our playhead to frame 24. And here's the cool thing. I'm going to copy and paste these keyframes from the scene layer. Yeah, you can see both of our scene, or both of our animation layers inside of the timeline. I'm just going to select that keyframe. And with my cursor down here, I'm going to hold down Control-C or Command-C if you're using a Mac. That's going to copy the keyframe. Now, once again, you got to have your cursor down in the timeline. I'm going to select the layer that I want to paste this keyframe onto and hit Command-V. And now I have that duplicated layer, the duplicated keyframe, excuse me. So I got another keyframe on frame 24. Now I'm going to go 20 frames forward. So now we're going to what, 44. I still have that keyframe saved in my clipboard. So Command-V to paste it in. Really what I'm doing here is establishing a keyframe system inside of my timeline so I can test my timing. Okay, and then 14 frames forward now. So that puts us at 58. There we go, paste in the keyframe, and then 8 frames later, right here at 64. I'm gonna make my total scene maybe 70 frames long, just so I have a little bit of wiggle room at the end in case I wanna make a change. And then with my cursor down here in the timeline, Command-V to paste in that last frame. Okay. So we have a keyframe structure in our timeline that we now can use to test out our system. And this is where it gets really kind of fun. So on the first keyframe, our auto key system is enabled. Let's turn off our exposure chart. Don't need that anymore. And I'm going to go in and let's do this. I'm going to go into edit mode. And on this first frame, I just want to see that sphere. So I want to delete everything else. Grab all these other spheres. Hit the X key, dissolve them, bye-bye. You can already see the power of the onion skinning. Do the same thing for all these lines. Okay, there we go. We'll go forward to the next keyframe. And on the next keyframe on frame 24, I just want to see the number 2 ball. So I want to delete everything but the number 2 ball. There we go. We'll leave these arcs in here for the time being. On the third keyframe, now we just want to see the number 3 ball. You can see the pattern that's emerging. It's real helpful when you draw all these layout frames. When everything's on one drawing, we then can just duplicate that drawing and go forward. We don't have to redraw everything. I'm not about reinventing the wheel. Animation's already hard enough. Let's see if there's ways that we can make it easier just by duplicating frames and going from there. Okay, here we go. Almost done. Oops, excuse me. All right. I'll dissolve that last one. All right, let's play our animation and start to conceptualize how the timing of all of this is going to work. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm going boom, 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 boom. Pretty cool, huh? When we're working in the animation process, we have to project. We have to pretend a little bit. In the early stages of our animation, we're not going to have every single animation frame available to us, nor do we want to have every single animation frame. We need to pretend and start to see the movements in its most basic rudimentary stage so that we can edit and make decisions and change things without having to throw away hours and hours and hours of work that was done to complete all of the in-between frames. By managing the timing early on and projecting what it's going to look like at the end, our animation process is going to be a whole lot more efficient and the results are going to be much stronger.